I love gadgets, and I especially love gadgets that I can rationalize as like a business expense or as something that's going to make my life easier when riding my R1M. Yes, the whole name, yes, every time. I bought my first Apple Watch almost 2 years ago, and have been wearing it daily since then. And I think I am finally ready to answer the question that led me to buy this thing in the first place, which is the Apple Watch a good motorcycle accessory? Minor spoiler warning, I'm going to answer that question in my usual, well, it's complicated way that I am wont to do. But mainly my goal is to provide you some guidance and tips on what I thought the Apple Watch was really, really good at, what it was excelling at, as well as what it was kind of disappointingly bad at. And even some things to consider before you buy any wearable to use while riding a motorcycle. What I'm not going to waste time on is any like feature or app that is not expressly useful when riding a motorcycle. If you want a generic Apple Watch review, go watch a Marquez Brownlee video. All right, let's go. Electronic rider aids are nothing new. We've had weatherproof GPSs, you can mount onto your headstock, bone mounts for handlebar, and even helmets with heads-up displays that people have been saying are going to be the wave of the future for what feels like 50 fucking years, but somehow still aren't available at any local retailer. Probably because the concept is fucking dog shit. A newer entry into this arena is wearable smart devices like the Apple Watch and Android Wear devices. But how useful are these things really in the context of motorcycles? For my setup and testing, I use an Apple Watch Series 5 and 6, non-cellular versions connected to an iPhone 10, 11, and 12. Let me just start here by saying that if you don't have an iPhone, the Apple Watch isn't for you. If you have an Android phone and you bought an Apple Watch, just throw it in the fucking trash. And then throw yourself in the trash too afterward because you are also in fact trash. Holy shit, that's a joke. Please get the fuck out of the comment box. The Apple Watch hardware and software can only really be taken advantage of by having an iPhone due to custom hardware Apple builds into these products, like their W series wireless chipsets, instead of the shitty off-the-shelf Bluetooth chips that other manufacturers put into their products. The advantage of this, just like in the case of the AirPods, is that a lot of the wireless fuckery that is common with modern Bluetooth devices, like connection failures, audio not syncing between the buds, range issues, these things are just not really a problem on the Apple Watch. The Apple Watch has two direct inputs, the touchscreen, which you touch with your fingers, or, if you're like me, a surprising amount of the time with your nose. The other is the digital crown, which is really just a fucking pompous ass way of describing this spinning dial that you can also press in and acts like the home button in older iPhones by mostly just waking up the watch and bringing you to the menu. Both of these input methods are pretty challenging to use with motorcycle gloves on. The Apple Watch touchscreen has touch targets that are much smaller than your average cell phone. I do enough fat fingering with two hands on my iPhone screen. Trying to use one hand to do even simple tasks while wearing motorcycle gloves can make you want to drive into a fucking Jersey barrier. Modern touchscreens, like what's on mobile phones and the Apple Watch, measure electric signals and other types of data to figure out when something is touching it. That's why when you take like a pen and tap it, shit no worky. To be able to input on the screen, you'll either need to not have gloves on, or use gloves that have a conductive material that can interact with touchscreens. The thing about touch-sensitive gloves is they don't usually use whatever the electroconductive material is that works on the screens on the entire glove. Often it's just going to be a touch-sensitive index finger and thumb. Realistically, you can't really use your thumb to operate the Apple Watch. Thumbs are just too sausage-like, and then once you slap on the additional girth of a glove and try to hit those touch targets that are like a 1/4 inch in diameter on a phone or on a watch, yeah, that shit just don't work. I've kind of had mixed luck with gloves that have touch-capable locations. Many of them seem like they're just like a flap or something sewn over the index finger and the thumb, which I've worn through well before the glove itself had fallen apart. There's also the substance you can buy from the internet, like this shit I bought called, I don't know, what is this shit? Anyway, it's apparently some substance that's supposed to make surfaces work on touchscreens. I tested it. It seemed to work okay. I don't know how long it lasts. I've used these Reax Tasker leather gloves for the last 2 years, and although I will say that they are sized for people with smaller hands, which I appreciate as a baby-handed individual myself, they do start to create tingling sensations on long rides, but the touch sensitivity seems to be deeply woven into the glove, and it stayed functional for multiple years now. The second requirement to be able to interact with the Apple Watch is to wear clothing that allows you to actually see and touch the damn thing. I know this sounds comically rudimentary, but it's something that you'll need to consider, and it will limit the conditions that you can even think about interacting with the watch under. Some of the most common motorcycle clothing is long sleeve shirts and jackets, and that's exactly the type of clothes that are going to make using an Apple Watch a lot harder. To the surprise of literally nobody, if there's a sleeve over your watch, well, it's pretty damn worthless, chief. Hypothetically, let's just say you live somewhere that's warm enough to ride shirtless 24/7. And let's also say hypothetically again that you're the type of person to do that. Well, there's this other weather condition that makes the Apple Watch worse than useless: rain. All well-made mobile electronics nowadays are water resistant, and the Apple Watch is in fact a well-made piece of electronics. You can wash the dishes, take a shower, or get rain on the Apple Watch and it's gonna be fine. But what water does is disrupt the connection with the touchscreen. So it takes something that's already challenging in a writing situation to interact with and makes it Wiimote-throwingly frustrating, because if there is a water droplet on part of the screen that you're trying to hit, it'll spread the touch target across the wider area and make accurate selection nearly impossible. What this all means is that it's a relatively narrow set of conditions that the Apple Watch is going to work optimally for you in. And those conditions are warm, dry weather, wearing touch-sensitive gloves or no gloves, and a shirt or a jacket that doesn't cover the watch when you twist to look at it. For some of you, that maybe puts a damper on your plans to get one of these. But I know you guys. A lot of you are probably only taking your bike out in perfect weather anyway, and love wearing tank tops and flip-flops when you wheelie down the roadway, so I'm sure this isn't really a barrier for you. The Apple Watch Series 5 uses the sensors inside to determine when you're looking at it and when you aren't. So you kind of have to flick your wrist up for the display to light up and become touch sensitive. One of the headline features of the Series 6 was an always-on low-power display. Now personally, I would rather have, probably 30 minutes or so of additional battery life I'd get if I just didn't power the watch face when I wasn't looking at it. But that's just me. You can make the Series 6 work just like a Series 5 by going to the settings on the watch, scrolling down to the display and brightness, then turning the always on setting to off. If you like the always on feature, but you want an easy way to disable it sometimes under maybe some specific conditions, there are two modes you can activate from the watch face that modify the display behavior. Water mode disables the touch input on the display, and then theater mode disables the display until you click the digital crown. Both of these are activated by swiping from the bottom of the display and then tapping the water drop icon for water mode or the sad and happy mask icons for theater mode. There's one last thing you might need to work around. The way you're supposed to wear a watch would be to have the crown facing the direction closest to your other hand, but you'll notice mine is pointing the other direction. Depending on which gloves I wear, during the normal course of moving my hand and wrist while writing, I would end up often inadvertently activating the crown, which in turn sometimes activated the screen, which would sense input from something on my jacket or weather outside of it. It actually took me a while to figure out why songs would randomly skip or repeat when I was writing, or like the volume would randomly go up and down, and this ended up being the reason. The workaround is pretty simple, but makes using the watch a bit more challenging. I'm right-handed, so the crown and the side button here that operates like the power button on a phone should be pointed to my right hand by default so that I can use my thumb and index finger to precisely manipulate these buttons. But instead, I have it on the left side, and this is because I found that often my gloves would inadvertently activate these buttons. When my gloves would hit the crown, it led to pausing my music or skipping tracks. When the side button activates, that puts it into this power off or emergency SOS mode, which you definitely don't want to have to accidentally go off while you're writing. Swapping this stuff around is done under Settings, General, Orientation. And then you tell the watch what arm you have it on and which direction the crown is facing relative to you. This change has downsides. It forces me to manipulate it with the much fatter and less dexterous left thumb, opposed to the thumb and forefinger that I could use before. Maybe you won't have that issue with whatever gloves you have, or maybe the watch will wear differently on your wrist, but that's a suggestion if it is a problem. Okay, so let's get to the part where I tell you what the Apple Watch is good for. I try to be as exhaustive as possible with each app and feature, but in the software world, things do change. So it's possible any iOS update or new Apple Watch version might mean that this stuff works slightly differently in the year X that you are currently living in. Notifications are probably the feature I most overlooked when I was assessing what the utility of an Apple Watch might be when writing, and for some people, maybe it won't be as big as a deal as it was for me. Despite muting lots of app notifications, on an average day, I get pinged by messages, Discord, Slack, Signal, email, Twitter, YouTube, phone calls, Tinder, Grindr, Plenty of Fish, Ashley Madison, and Christian Mingle. Of all these apps, there aren't many that I would want to interrupt a ride just to stop and respond to. And even of the small subset of apps that I might have a notification I would want to take action on, there's only a subset of messages from specific people who are maybe sending me some sort of time-bound information or request that would cause me to stop and do something immediately. But if one of those messages comes through, I really want to know about it. And having a phone constantly buzzing with Schrodinger's notifications gives me a lot of anxiety. The Apple Watch is an awesome solution for this problem. Since it's on my wrist, instead of on my sight line like your phone being mounted to your handlebars, I'm not going to be looking at every notification the literal moment it comes in, and that's exactly the way I want it. Yes, I want some level of friction to stop my eyes from instantly being drawn to a message notification while I'm writing, 100%. Because really, most of these notifications are just group threads or discords that we're probably all in way too many of anyway. The Apple Watch collects notifications together in what they call stacks, so you'll see these notifications from the same app or the same message group all together. This makes it easy to glance quickly and see if that new notification is from a chat with your buddies from high school or someone that actually matters. The number one thing that came to my noggin when I was considering how an Apple Watch could make riding easier was navigation. My strategy for navigation on a motorcycle has evolved dramatically over the last 15 years, and I'm sure we've all developed our own preferred strategy for doing it. These days, you probably aren't printing out MapQuest directions and shoving them in your pocket to hastily pull out and glance at during a traffic light. At first, I developed a process where I would memorize small sets of directions, and then pause along the way to review once I got to the end of them, or if I got lost. Once phone-based, audio-only turn-by-turn navigation came to the iPhone, it was a complete game changer for my navigation and freed up all kinds of brain power. But I found that sometimes I would get distracted actually operating my motorcycle and then miss some key detail of the navigation. And honestly, I think part of the problem is that these apps are a little too precise in their navigation instructions. The way these apps talk is like, in 2.5 miles, take exit 21B south on I-5, then take the immediate right onto Super Douche Way West. If a human gave me directions like that, I'd assume that they were fucking with me. Cut the bullshit, Jerry, and just give me a goddamn right or left. And that brings me to the Apple Watch's navigation. You still get the over-explanatory voice navigation, but there are two additional pieces of feedback the watch gives you that makes it more tolerable. First, the Apple Watch gives you a subtle tap as a heads up before it's about to start barraging you with information, which gives you time to put yourself in a more boring situation so you can pay attention. Second, and more importantly, when you're navigating, the watch face defaults to a handy, glanceable navigation panel showing you the current navigation instruction. So if you missed the instruction, want to check and see how far to the next turn, or want to make sure it's still working because you haven't heard anything in a while, Apple Watch is great for that. There's some other info you can get from this too. There's an estimated arrival time, which really seems to underestimate my ability to get through traffic. You can use the crown to scroll through directions, but you kind of need to be stopped to realistically do this. There's also a mini map, but again, I find it at its small size to be less useful. Once you do this, it does default back to the navigation mode after the Apple Watch returns to idle, so you won't need to click back through it. There is also an alternative GPS mode, but I don't personally think it's as useful since when you're riding, you really want to spend as little time possible looking at the watch face. The word mode just feels like I can pick up the distance, direction, and maybe even a street name in less than a second. A super common question that came up in the comments on my video about what headphones I recommend around how I skip songs with the wired Shure headphones I used. And really, the answer for a long time was, I don't. I set up a playlist for writing and move songs in and out of it so that I don't ever have songs that I want to be skipping. But after getting an Apple Watch, I have skipped a song or two, since it's actually pretty simple to do that. When you're playing music, the watch face defaults to a simple forward, back, and pause interface, with the bonus being that you can turn the crown to adjust the volume. But I personally find it harder to use the crown for that than to just press the volume buttons with the phone in my pocket. The caveat is that the Apple Watch is optimized for doing one thing at a time. So if you're listening to music and navigating, one of those apps has to be the default when you look at the watch. And this means extra button clicks and time to do something simple like skip a song. In the navigation music scenario, navigation gets prioritized by default. So if you want to skip a song, you'll have to get to the music screen, and to do that, you have to get back to the watch face by pressing the crown in, then pressing it again to get to the app menu, then navigating the app menu to find the music app through scrolling or the crown swiping. Then you can pause, play, and fast forward the song. None of these actions are easy to do precisely, and so are probably going to lead to inaccurate taps pretty often, which means that more time frustratingly navigating around this tiny interface and not focused on writing. So if you're going to do all this futzing about, you're probably only going to want to do it when not moving, like at a stoplight. Again, all that complexity is only when doing multiple things at a time, so if you're only listening to music, those controls should come up immediately when you look at the watch. This was something I discovered like a year into owning the Apple Watch, and I was fucking pissed off I didn't realize it before. I don't know about you, but when I go out for a ride to some rural location hours away, I like to snap a picture of my bike and myself as a souvenir for the trip. Usually I'll just bring a mini tripod, and before the Apple Watch, I do my best to kind of frame the photo and then hit the button on the timer and sprint over to my bike to get into position, and then go back to the camera, check the photo, realize I wasn't centered, or it was blocking something in the background I wanted, or maybe like I made the wrong face or whatever, and then do that over and over and over again until I got a photo I was happy with. It can take a surprising amount of time, but with the Apple Watch, it streamlines this process a lot. I set my phone up and calmly walk over to my bike, flick my wrist up, open the camera control app, check my position on my bike wherever I'm at, then I hit the 3-second shutter button. Then I just take a quick look at the photo, see if anything looks super off right on the watch, and then take a few more. This is a massive time and effort saver, and just another way I avoid needing riding buddies. I'll be honest, sometimes I get distracted and leave my wallet at home. But you know what I never ever forget before I go out on a ride? My iPhone. You might remember from my R1M review that gas mileage isn't exactly its forte. And I've been in one or two sticky situations where without my phone, I might have had to do my best impression of one of those Twitch streamer bubble bath thingies to get someone to fill my tank for me. If you input a credit card into your Apple Wallet, you can use it to pay at those little near-field communication readers, which are now more common than not. You push the side button twice and wave it around, and voila, you've paid. With payments taken care of, you might be tempted to just purposely leave your wallet at home because you don't need it. But obviously, until our local governments step into the 20th century and stop making us carry these stupid physical cards when we drive, or until our society fully evolves into the perfect libertarian utopia where we've abolished licensing, you'll probably want to at least carry that. I bought one of these thin credit card holders that magnetize to the back of the newer iPhones, and if you put your ID in that bad boy, you're pretty close to walletless. Look, you don't need all these fucking loyalty cards with one punch in them, people. Just let them go. Throw them away. It's okay. Okay, just let me try to put a bow on this and do one final rant on an opinion I have that I want to lay to rest with this video. Are the things I've talked about in this video enough to justify buying an Apple Watch? If you own an iPhone and you like all the non-motorcycle things that the Apple Watch does, like fitness tracking and collecting health data and telling fucking time, then, well, you're basically 90% the way there anyway. That was ultimately what got me to finally pull the trigger. If the normal features that it has aren't enough for you to want to buy one, well, here's what I'd consider. Do you use one of these mounts on your bike because you feel like the compulsive need to be able to constantly see turn-by-turn directions, respond to text messages, and skip, pause, and play music? If yes, then I really encourage you to seriously consider an Apple Watch instead. This is like one of the few opinions I have that makes me feel like the overly cautious assholes in all these motorcycle forums and subreddits who bitch about people not wearing gear or doing wheelies or whatever. But I really do think that you should avoid mounting your phone to your handlebars for these types of purposes. And you know what? Just throw out the distracted driving aspect of it, even though, again, I think if we're each honest with ourselves, there's a uncontrollable compulsion to direct your eyes at a display that just lit up with a notification that none of us can cognitively train ourselves out of entirely. But let's just say that you're completely capable of avoiding the temptation and you only look at your phone for navigation or whatever while it's safe. I really do think you're kind of rewiring your brain to need that level of assistance. I've noticed that I seem to have a better sense of direction and ability to recognize landmarks and streets than a lot of other people, which I don't think is entirely because I don't mount one of those things to my handlebars, but I think it's a factor. Our brains are biologically wired to take the easiest path whenever possible. And between thinking like, oh, how far exactly is 200 feet relative to my current location? Is it this street or is it that street? Where is exit 268? Is that Lenore? What's that street name? And just staring at a little line on your phone, our brains are gonna wanna follow the little line. When I think of people who heavily rely on phone navigation, I don't think of people who are like sharp, skilled riders. I think of motovloggers who seem incapable of talking and keeping track of wherever they're at in their city at the same time. I think of people who don't know any of the street names or frankly don't even know the neighborhoods of their own city. So when they're asking people like me, hey, where's the best flood place in Seattle? And I'm like, oh yeah, I love this place down in the International District. They don't have the foggiest fucking idea what I'm talking about. Our brains are so fucking lazy that it'll cause people to ask an incredibly specific question about a law in their city on a YouTube video from 2 years ago, which no video creator in their right mind would even look at except for some idiot like me, instead of just opening Google and entering the exact same question to find their answer. That's what I think of when I think of people who are so tied to the idea that they need their phone mounted to their handlebars. And personally, I don't want to be that guy. So I recommend using an Apple Watch instead. I think that's a pretty good compromise. If this video wasn't convincing, that is totally fine. You don't have to write an angry comment about it. You don't have to write an angry comment about it. I'm literally never gonna bring this up again. If you do have a tip for using the Apple Watch on a motorcycle, or if I missed some cool app or something, leave it down in the comments. I mentioned this in my Discord and somebody actually threw out some things that I had initially forgotten about, so I appreciate that. I do read all the comments and still enjoy when people have something interesting or insightful to say. I'm doing a track day for my birthday this next month, so that's sort of like a quasi meetup, if you want, at the Ridge Motorsports Park down in Sheldon, Washington. It's Sunday with Optimum Performance Race Team, OPRT. I think that's what it stands for. Anyway, if you want to get in on it. And I'll be heading out there the night before, so Saturday night, to camp out and chill, and riding Sunday. I'll be in the beginner's course. Hell yeah. You can follow me on Twitch, where I chat and play video games sometimes on stream. There's of course a Patreon where you can get like a special Discord role, or you can just encourage me to make more videos there if you want. Get your vaccine. I did already. Team J&J, all the way, one shot, one kill. Ride fast, take chances. That was weird. Fuck it. That's why when I take this pen and I tap it, shit no worky.